Good morning, children. How are you all? Fine. Very good. Now is the session of economics. Okay. Although I had completed the chapter National Income and Related Aggregates in the previous session, and I had advised you to do practicals and solve numericals and answer the related questions of all types, short types, long types, multiple choice and all. Okay, so that you may have a very good grip over this chapter. This chapter carries 10 marks, and by going through this chapter properly you can score full marks. Okay, some more topics I think must be discussed from this chapter, because in some of the previous examinations questions have been asked from them. Okay, children, in the previous session I had explained about money GDP and real GDP. Okay, I had said that money GDP is called when it is estimated at current prices, and real GDP is called when it is estimated at constant prices. Okay, I had also told you that the economic growth of a country is measured in terms of real GDP, not in terms of money GDP. Okay, that means a rise in real GDP implies economic growth of a country. Okay, or you can say that when there is a rise in real GDP, then certainly there will be rise in real per capita GDP also. How will you calculate per capita real GDP? Do you know? The real GDP, when is divided by total population, then you will get per capita real GDP. Okay, so when you define economic growth first, then you can define it as a process of a continuous rise in real GDP as well as real per capita GDP. Okay, why? Rise in real GDP means rise in real income, real national income ultimately. Okay, and rise in real per capita GDP implies ultimately rise in per capita income ultimately. Okay, so rise in real GDP and rise in real per capita GDP ultimately imply economic growth of a country. Okay, but in what way? You know, children, the GDP generates through the process of production. Production of what? Production of goods and services. Okay, what are the usage of the goods and services? You know better. These goods and services are used by their users to fulfill their needs, to fulfill their wants. Okay, and you can say that more and more satisfaction of the wants, fulfillment of the needs, then there will be higher level of welfare of the people living in that country. Okay, so ultimately more and more availability of goods and services that is possible through the production means economic welfare of the people as well as social welfare of the people, or you can say welfare of the people. Okay, so in a simple way it can be said that there is a direct relationship between real GDP and welfare of the people. Okay, if the real GDP rises, it is assumed, it is supposed that there will be rise in welfare of the people also. Okay. Once more, let us understand the process of economic growth. You know what happens when there is a rise in real GDP? Certainly there will be rise in real income of the people. And if real income of the people rises, it will lead to rise in their aggregate demand. Okay? And a rise in aggregate demand ultimately will lead to rise in investment by producers. Okay? And this way the process of economic growth takes place. Rise in GDP also implies rise in employment. And rise in employment means rise in income. Rise in income means rise in aggregate demand. Rise in aggregate demand means rise in investment. And rise in investment ultimately means rise in GDP, real GDP. This is called economic growth. This is the process of economic growth. And through this process of economic growth, welfare of the people takes place. Okay, so you can say to ensure higher level of welfare of the people, it is essential to ensure high rate of economic growth in terms of real GDP as well as in terms of real per capita GDP. Okay, it is clear that rise in real GDP will ultimately ensure welfare of the people. But you know, children, there are some certain conditions in which there may be rise in real GDP, however, there may not be welfare of the people. How can you say? Yes. Here you can give some arguments. As first of all, if suppose GDP of a country rises over time only because of rises in general price level, then will it ensure more availability of goods and services to the people? Certainly not. Why? Because this rise in GDP has taken place only because of monetary fluctuations that are rise in the general price. They will not due to increase in our production potential in terms of goods and services. Okay, so in this condition there won't be economic welfare or welfare of the people. Number two, that is, if real GDP rises due to increase in production of harmful things like tobacco, cigarettes, wine, alcohol, etc., then it implies economic growth, but it does not imply welfare of the people, as these things have very bad impact on health of the people. Okay. The third one is, suppose there is a rise in real GDP, but due to increase in production of weapons, arms and ammunitions, military items, etc., then to some extent or to larger extent these things are essential for defense purposes. However, directly these things will not benefit the people in fulfillment of their wants, their needs. Okay, so in this condition also you can say that although there is a rise in real GDP, but not there is welfare of the people. The next, if there is unequal distribution of income and wealth in the society, suppose there is wide disparity, okay, then a rise in real GDP certainly will not benefit all the people living in that society or all sections of that society. If there is unequal distribution of income and wealth, then a rise in real GDP will benefit only a few sections or a few number of people of the society. Certainly, it cannot be called as welfare. Okay? You know, children, in developing countries like India, still in some of the rural belts, in some of the rural areas, non-monetary transactions take place. Okay? And in that condition, the actual data of production, income and expenditures, etc. are not made available properly. Thus, the proper estimation of real GDP in this circumstance is not possible or difficult. Moreover, so the measurement of welfare of the people is also difficult. Okay? You know, children, there are some externalities of the process of economic growth also. What are these called? These externalities are the good and bad impacts of the process of economic growth or of an economic activity. Okay? You know, when the process of economic growth takes place, the production takes place or any economic activity takes place, then it has some positive impacts as well as negative impacts. Okay? Such as, suppose if a person maintains a garden at his home, then certainly it will benefit the people living surrounding his house also. It is the positive impact of externality. Okay? And suppose if a factory is established somewhere and the smokes are coming out of it, then the smokes will badly harm the people living round about it. Okay? So it will be called negative externality. Okay? So it is also important to see that the process of economic growth is creating more negative externalities or positive externalities. If there are more positive externalities, then you can say there is welfare of the people. Okay? And with this, I would like to finish this lecture. Chapter is already over. All important instructions and suggestions I have given. Okay, so please follow the instructions whatever are given by us. Thank you.